Greetings, you. It's DFG here, getting in flight. Hey guys, I'm out here on the, I guess I would have to call this the swamp banks of the Lower Ninth Ward here in New Orleans. And this is the first time I've visited this area, since the 70s. Kid at the time, but since the 70s. And this area brings back a lot of memories, for me. And I passed by it a couple of days ago, and I thought, you know what? Maybe it's time to go back over and just take a look around and do a little reflection and see if y'all, had a word for me to share with you around the deep memories that this area has for me as a young kid. Those tracks, or if you see those railroad tracks, I can't tell you how many times I walked those tracks all the way to that bridge down there, if you can see it. I don't know if you can see that far down. All the way down to the other end, you can't even see beyond where those tracks go. But we played on these tracks as a kid, and got into a little mischief as kids on those tracks. Well, I didn't get into mischief. Some of my friends got into mischief on those tracks. But I was with a lot of my friends a lot of times who were looking for mischief on these tracks. And I bring this out right now just to kind of share a very, very disheartening story about where these tracks led very close childhood friends of mine. And the story connects with the importance of having guidance in our lives, male leadership in our lives, and providing male leadership for young boys. And what can happen when that leadership is either not present, or that leadership lacks discernment in terms of understanding what the children are doing, or that leadership lacks, genuine concern about the welfare of what young men, in particular boys, will do without the proper supervision, as well as without the basic foundations of, what are the things that's allowable as Israelites, and what are the things that aren't allowable. And that takes us back to the laws and the statutes and the commandments. But I'm going to tell this story briefly, because maybe the story will be an alarm story to a lot of you fathers out there, some of you mothers as well, on what happens when you don't keep your eyes on your boys, that you don't train your sons up properly. My friends and I, we would go and we'd play on these tracks. And we would go as far as we could go on these tracks until it got to an area that was off limits to us. And what I mean by off limits, it was what we call a racial line, where blacks were not allowed to go beyond. If blacks were beyond those racial lines, then, it was a very dangerous situation, because we could run into all kind of, Klansmen, Ku Klux Klansmen, white supremacists, all kind of bigotry if we went too far along these tracks. But as young kids, being mischievous and, full of testosterone boys, every now and then we would chance it, at least my friends would chance it, and I would be with them. And as they would go back there, they would get into the imaginations of their minds. And a lot of times that imagination will be centered around just wicked behavior. Wicked behavior. And little boys can be wicked. Let me make that out front clear. A lot of you think, well, he's just 6, 7, 8, 12, 13. What does he know about evil? Take it from me. And most of you may already know this. They can be damn wicked at that age. When I mean damn wicked, they could do the kind of things that would break your heart, that would shock the shit out of you, mothers. If you think for 1 second your little 13-year-old or 10-year-old son is not capable of doing things that would ruin your family's name, doing things that would get him locked up till he's an adult, doing things that would destroy the lives of others, doing things that would destroy your lives or your life, fathers, you better think again. Because we played on these tracks. Again, we played on those tracks. And you know, in our little mischief, in our so-called fun time, we would always imagine, man, if we went back there and we crossed the parish line, is what we call it. We crossed that line back there, maybe we'd find some kids back there that had things that we were deprived of because of poverty. BB guns, little mini bikes, go-karts, you name it. And a couple of my friends, you know, I don't mean to laugh about it because it's not really funny. But, you know, I grew up with some friends that they weren't any tougher than I was because they weren't afraid of me and I wasn't afraid of them. And we would all, you know, none of us were cowards. But they were a little bit more gutsy than I was. They would take chances that I just flat out just wouldn't take. And if the truth truly be told, some of those friends were a lot more evil in their hearts than I was. See, I've never been the kind of person, you know, who could harm innocent people, you know, intentionally. I mean, I've done things that I've had to repent of. I've done things that I've regretted, things that, you know, I knew were not right. But I've never been wicked. You know what I'm saying? I've never had that wicked mind to physically harm somebody, you know, rob them, kill them, you know, again, physical harm, destroy their life. I've never had that rahook in me. By the grace of Yah, I'm sure. But I had friends who thought a little bit different than I thought. They damn sure would go way farther than I would go. But in our folly, in our childlike conversations, the conversation would come up all the time. Man, if I catch one of those white kids over there, if they had a BB gun, they had a motorbike, go-kart, whatever, we're going to jack them. In other words, we're going to take it from them by force. And so we would walk to the edges of where we were allowed, and then some would cross over that line, and some like myself would not. So that's the same thing with wickedness and sin. It's a good metaphor. How far you go? Do you know how far to go? Will you allow the rahook to keep you from crossing the line, to go against Elohim? When you do that, just know, when you're allowing the rahook to keep you from crossing that line, not only are you saving your own life, but you can also be saving yourself from a loss of shame, a lifetime of shame. Because not only did my friends talk about going over along those lines, those tracks down there, you can see them, hoping and praying that they would catch some unsuspecting, you know, little boy, little girl unawares, you know, and rob them of whatever their parents had provided for them. You know, some of my friends, because they were 13, 14, 15, that testosterone started to kick up in them. And then the testosterone started to kick up in them. You know, they started having sex thoughts, sexual thoughts. Well, man, what happens if we find some girls over there? And of course, that conversation would lead into, you know, conversations about, you know, what they would do. And again, let me remind you, we're talking about 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, and a couple of 16 and 17-year-olds. The older ones very seldom went beyond those borders. But see, the 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds, they were making regular habit of it. And every now and then they would catch someone back there, and they would take, you know, a BB gun from them. They would take, you know, I don't know, a go-kart, whatever it was that they could get their hands on. They would do it. They would succeed in it. Very seldom, but every now and then, you know, they would succeed in their devious adventures. And again, many times I would go with them. I can honestly tell you, there was never a time I went with them and there was anyone back there. And even if there was someone back there, you know, I would drift back, I would start to drift back. The farther and farther, the closer they would get to the edge, the farther back I would drift back. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, and I say that because sometimes, you know, when we're enticed with sin, that's the way, you know, we would love to believe the Ruach will be working in us. It's to guide us, to lead us, to restrain us. The closer we get to sin, that the Ruach will kick in and pull us back and back and back and back till we're far enough away where we were safe from committing, abominable acts, or far away from violating the law, statutes, and commandments of Elohim. Which is a beautiful thing, because we all can be tempted. But, that temptation, does not have to manifest itself in unrighteousness. It doesn't have to manifest itself in wickedness. It doesn't have to manifest itself in abominable acts and behavior. But on one particular day, as my friends were going back there, me and my older brother, a year older than myself, he's deceased now, we were aligned to go with them. But at the last minute, we got a call, not a call, phone call. We got, hey, DFG, hey, BG, my brother's initials. I need you guys to go run an errand for me, my mom. And we knew that because it was after school, it was in the late afternoon. We knew that going on that errand would took us that way on the tracks instead of that way on the tracks. Because that way on the tracks was trouble. That way on the track was resources, means. We were forced to go that way, although we really wanted to go that way. See, that's what the Ruach will do for you. The Ruach will force you to go Yah's way when you want to go Satan's way. But if you honor it enough, and you have it buried enough in you, or there's a voice for you, almost like a mother's voice, then it'll pull you back. That voice pulled us back. And on the very day that voice pulled us back, just for record, the day that voice pulled us back, that was the day that my friends succeeded going down these tracks. And when they got to the end of the tracks on this particular day that we were pulled back, they found some kids back there. And some of the kids they found back there playing unawares were little white girls. And 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old, under the lack of supervision from the 17-year-old, I think there was an 18-year-old out there with them on this particular day, they attacked the little girls. My friends, in their wickedness, attacked the girls. They violated them, sexually violated them, while the older boys, teenagers, young men, stood there and did nothing to stop it. Later on that night, law enforcement from back there, the white supremacist law enforcement from back there, middle of the night, came into our little community over there with shotguns, M16s, kicked in doors, grabbed my friends who were part of that, took them to the prison back there, beat them almost to the point of death, threw them in the adult prison, even though they were 15, 16-year-olds, 13-year-olds. The older ones who did not participate, but they allowed it, they watched it. That whole group were incarcerated after they got the hell beat out of them. And the older of the group, 16 and above, to this very day, are serving life in Louisiana State Penitentiary at Angola, Louisiana. And the only reason why I'm here, and my brother, who's deceased now, were not there is by the grace of Yah with a mother who, unbeknownst to her, was saving her two sons from embarrassing her family and from destroying their lives. all because of a lack of discipline, a lack of direction, a lack of a male figurehead who could warn us or forewarn us about the consequences of making decisions without thinking about the consequences. And I bring this message to you today, my brothers and sisters, as a warning. How easily you can lose your children. How easy a life can be destroyed. I mean, we were back there playing. I mean, we didn't understand the seriousness of this stuff. No, I didn't. I understood the folly involved in it. But I never once imagined that some of us could end up being, our life would be destroyed forever. I mean, the 18, 17, 18-year-old, they're old men now, and they're still in prison. For one afternoon of folly, for one afternoon of no discipline, for one afternoon of not understanding the consequences of one's behavior when one has no knowledge of truly what is right and what is wrong. Or have the knowledge of it, but no discipline to execute that knowledge. And I like to think my mom was an example of the Rahook. She wasn't a Rahook, but that's the way the Rahook works inside of you when you have it in you. That's why you need to bring your children up in the knowledge of Elohim. You see, that Rahook would be like it was doing to me. It would warn you. It would signal you to draw back, to fall back. And when you need it the most, it will save and protect you. Go the opposite direction. Go that way. As my mother, unbeknownst to her, but by the grace of Yah, was for me and my older brother. And this story may or may not resonate with some of you. It's not a story that I take any particular pride in telling, but I think it's a story that needs to be told. Because the wages of sin is death. And without the law, there is no way to be able to measure that wickedness. And that's why the law, statutes, and commandments of Yah are so important. That's why men in your homes with your sons is so important. Mothers in home with your daughters is so important. Because in one little moment, your children's lives can change forever. On that particular day, some of my friends' lives changed forever. Someone went into an adult maximum security prison, totally unprepared to deal with it. And many of them, or some of them, when they went into that institution, were assaulted sexually and forced into homosexuality. And the justice of Yah came back to them. They reaped what they sowed. They stood there and they allowed wickedness to happen to these little girls. Let these little girls be sexually assaulted. So when they went to prison, they were sexually assaulted. And they became the girls. In a prison at that time was one of the most violent prisons in the United States of America. Still is. Angola State, Louisiana State Penitentiary at Angola. So parents, mothers, I want to remind you how important it is to play a very strong role in guiding your children, guiding your daughters, guiding your sons. And the importance of when you send them to these religious organizations, because all of these ones who were with us that day had parents who were elders in their churches, so-called pastors in their churches, missionaries in their churches, etc. But none of that had any impact on their children. Because at the end of the day, what really matters is what happens at home with your children. Like the book says, train up your child in the way they should go. That training happens at home, not in some synagogue, church, mosque, temple. And that's what you depend on. If that's what you depend on to raise your children, then understand that your children are going to be sitting ducks for Satan and his ministers of unrighteousness. And as they led many of my friends astray on that particular day, almost led me and my brother, going to lead your children that same path to destruction. Same tracks. They didn't realize on that evening that those tracks right there, can you see them tracks? They thought those tracks were going to take them to joy and fun. And those tracks on that particular day took them to a living hell. Where the 16, 17, 18-year-olds who were there on that day, on this very day, 40 years later, are still in penitentiary. Still to this very day. The way to sin is death. The gift of Elohim is eternal life. And as the book told us, we have to all come to that place choosing who we're going to serve. And the laws are not a respecter of persons. Elohim laws are not a respecter of persons. The wicked will face judgment. The righteous among us, as our book says, even though they fall 7 times, Yah lift them up. And I'm not boasting that me and my brother were so righteous. But I am telling you, every time we walked down those tracks and we were hanging out with our friends, that peer pressure, challenged me to follow them. I did drift back. I didn't drift back because I was a coward. I drift back because I knew I wasn't going to harm anybody. I knew good so well I wasn't going to take something from some other child that did not belong to me. I knew I wasn't going to violently attack anybody. I'm talking about taking their physical possessions. And I damn sure wasn't going to take anything from them physically. Wasn't going to assault physically, sexually, any kind of way, any damn body. No damn way was I going to do that. I'm talking about when I was 12 and 13 years old. No damn way I was going to do that. And Yah saw that in me. And I'm sure that's why he spared my ignorant, blinded ass on that particular day. But my friends were not as fortunate. Your sons and daughters may not be that fortunate. So it's going to be up to you to be the intercessor for your children. That's why you standing on the post. You're the one who is to train them, guide them, teach them the ways of the laws of our people, our ancestors. So that maybe you can save them from a living hell. And then somewhere down the road, an eternal, physical, spiritual hell. Yah willing. And Yah is always willing. The question is, are you, Mom? Are you willing, Dad? Are you willing, Uncle, Father, neighbor, brother? Are you willing? Because if you don't, as those families were destroyed on that particular day in an instant, trust me, the enemy of our people has not changed. And he's lurking about your neighborhood right now. He's lurking around your homes right now. He's lurking around your apartment right now. Looking to see who he can pick off. Which one of your children, if not all of them, he can pick off. When you're not looking. What does that mean, not looking? When your mind's on the cares and the issues of this goddamn world, instead of focus on the things of Yah. Amen? So, that's a testimony. Do with it what you will. But Yah told me to tell you on this day. And I've said it. Those tracks led 2 ways. So your life track, we all are on a path, 1 or 2 ways. The broad path of destruction or the straight path to everlasting life. And I'm going to walk down this walkway in a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to go that way or that way now. I'm going to go that way because that's what my vehicle is. You follow me? But I pray for you. And I pray for your family, my brothers and sisters of Israel, that you choose the right path, the path to life, everlasting life, through the blessings and the grace of Yah, and not eternal damnation by choosing the ways of man. Because the ways of man pays off with the wages of sin. And the wages of sin is death. DFG. Praise Yah. Love you guys. Talk to you later. Bye now.